A huge spaceship drifts in the depths of the galaxy. The people on board are terrified of death and desperately call for help. Their bloody palms hit the window glass as a loud crunching sound is heard somewhere nearby. Blood is smeared across the surfaces around, and the growl of a monster can be heard outside the ship. The people continue to cry for help as a dark creature, resembling a shapeless lump with vine-like tentacles, crawls across the ship. Its black, vine-like limbs secrete a thick, dark liquid. These tentacles gradually fill all the space around. The creature continues to secrete a sticky liquid, until someone accidentally steps on one of its parts. The man was wearing a helmet with a transparent glass on the face. Several armed men enter the ship and broadcast an order over the intercom for all units to gather in the captain's cabin. The message continues to repeat, but one of the armed men decides to cut off the communication channel. He mockingly refers to the captain. His comrade asks if they plan to go to the designated location, but the man in the O1 suit replies that he has no intention of obeying the orders of someone who thinks only of his own salvation. They will act according to their own plan. He orders his men to rescue as many survivors as possible, and the others agree. At that moment, one of them notices something strange. He hears someone's voice calling for help. A voice desperately begs them to come. They head in that direction. However, they remain cautious, moving slowly. What they discover astonishes them. A veritable mountain of corpses lies before them. One of the soldiers involuntarily makes a sound, but O1 immediately reminds everyone to remain vigilant. One of them remains in place to observe, while the others move on to find survivors as quickly as possible. One of the soldiers turns to the side where a voice is heard, asking if anyone is there. A plea comes from beneath the pile of bodies. A man trapped beneath them begs for help to escape. A soldier immediately rushes to help, but what he sees next shocks him. The one who called for help turns out to be a monster who only used the hand of a dead body as bait. The soldier immediately screams, warning the others that there is a monster here. The monster grabs the soldier by the helmet and begins to devour him. This all happens before the eyes of O1 and another soldier. The creature is black, with a squid-like head and multiple limbs. It holds the soldier down with two of them, and blood drips from its mouth. As it bites off a piece, the victim's internal organs become visible. The monster grins as he looks at them. The soldiers open fire on him. They continue firing without stopping. The monster scratches itself with its claws, and a green liquid flows from its body. It then scatters it in the air, spilling it on the soldiers. When the drops hit their suits, they begin to melt. The creature's blood is acidic. It burns through their armor and sears their skin. One of the soldiers runs to the injured, urging them to remain calm and promising to administer a cure soon. But suddenly someone shoots him in the back. He falls to the floor as the shots continue to ring out one after another. Through the noise, he hears a voice announcing that the emergency treatment is complete and advising him to head to the medical bay immediately. The man only groans in pain. His gaze becomes empty as the monster in front of him devours his comrade. This picture ignites rage in him. He clutches a grenade in his hand, but drops it when the monster grabs his wrist. The creature waves its hand lazily in front of his face. A pinkish slimy lump hangs from his tail. The monster then drops it right next to the soldier's face. And the slimy creature jumps on his face and, dissolving his skin before finally absorbing him. The soldier tries to break free, but the monster pins him tightly to the floor. After this, the pink mucus ball starts jumping around like a child. Reaching back to the monster's shoulder, he burps loudly. The monster heads towards the exit, leaving behind only a smoking skull. However, right at the door, he notices a problem. It is closed. The creature then grabs the severed arm of one of the corpses so that the recognition system can open the door. But the hand turns out to be unauthorized, and the system refuses entry. The monster is momentarily confused. At that moment, the slimy lump pulls out a bomb-like object, the same one the soldier had been holding. The monster picks up this item. The device falls, bounces on the floor, and explodes. The monster calmly passes through the destroyed door. He roars loudly, and the two men scream when they see him. The creature heads straight towards them and chooses its first victim, rushing forward at a rapid pace. The man's wide-open eyes, wet with fear, reflect the approaching teeth of the monster. The creature acts like a true predatory alien organism. It devours man. This monster instinctively understands how to live, feed, grow, survive, and evolve. Now let's go back to the very beginning. In the vastness of space, in the cargo hold of a cold metal ship, this creature became a hostile alien in a sci-fi survival game. Space Survival is an RPG game where the player chooses one of the many races existing in the depths of space and tries to survive, explore the world, and evolve. Sometimes you can become a metallic being that tears apart human ships, a mutated monster that destroys enemies on the surface, or even the leader of a hive mind that attacks entire planets. This player has played as every space monster imaginable, but he's always had one favorite race, the unidentified aggressive space morph known as the UASM. He calls it a morph. The concept of this creature is inspired by the creatures from the Alien movies, a race that endlessly enhances itself by absorbing the genetic information of its victims. At first glance, it seems like the most powerful race, but due to the high difficulty of survival and the lack of communication with other species for cooperation, it is considered one of the worst and rarest in the game. However, this is precisely what made it his favorite. The morph evolves based on the player's decisions and willpower, becoming increasingly stronger. The system window displays the UASM's parameters. Its current status is larval, and its sole purpose is survival. Its primary abilities are Core Organism, Preservation Characteristic, and Supersense. UASM monitors the interface. The creature's crab-like claws are the monster's true side. His choice of character was inspired by his favorite Alien movies. This creature has a scorpion-like body and a round head. He decides not to dwell on it further, but soon feels a strong itch. Molting is proving to be an extremely unpleasant process. So he sets off to search for food, crawling around a warehouse-like space. Judging by its design, he guesses it might be a megacobe or Star Union base. If discovered, he will be destroyed immediately. He activates his supersensory ability, allowing him to see the contents of containers. This ability allows him to fully sense all the space around him. Soon he finds what he was looking for. The creature climbs onto the green container. A password is required to open the container. He enters a simple code 1234, and suddenly it works. The container opens and sealed packages are found inside. The monster rips the packaging with its claws. He starts eating chocolate. It tastes like rubber but is nutritious enough. Just then, a cockroach scurries past. The creature reacts instantly and pierces him with its tail sting. The cockroach freezes and the monster immediately eats it. The system window informs him that the predatory effect has been activated. He successfully acquires the genetic essence of the wings, and the system asks if he wants to apply this mutation. The monster is amazed at his luck getting the gene so quickly. Genetic entities are a key element in the evolution of a morpha. The more genetic information he collects, the stronger he becomes. The monster liked the wings he received, so he chooses to accept them. Gradually, wings begin to form on his back, and soon the cockroach's membranes appear completely. It looks good, but he has absolutely no idea how to operate them. Since the wings are on the back, he tries to move the trapezius muscles. Over time, he begins to succeed and, flapping his wings, he rises above the ground. After this, he continues to eat chocolate bars. He soon realizes that he is spending much more energy than he expected. Spotting several cockroaches, he begins observing them, hoping to learn to use his wings better. Finally, he selects his first target. He pierces the cockroach and eats it immediately. In total, he has already swallowed 20 cockroaches, but this is still not enough. Eating another one, he even notes that the taste is reminiscent of chicken. After this, it gains a new characteristic, a chitinous shell, which increases defense as it grows. This is a useful ability, but it takes time to develop. Now he needs to obtain the characteristic of strong vitality, but this is not so easy to do. Strong vitality reduces energy expenditure and slows down aging, allowing the body to exist longer. Typically, this ability is possessed by passive insects or plant life forms that require much less food, so the monster concludes that to survive he just needs to catch more cockroaches. It jumps over the containers, changing position and rising higher, using its wings to observe other insects. Slowly approaching the target, he grabs the cockroach with his claw and bites off a large piece. But at this moment, another cockroach manages to escape. He doesn't want to let go of his prey, he rushes after it, but doesn't calculate his speed and crashes into an obstacle. The blow was painful, but it did not stop him from chasing the cockroach. He sticks his tail into a narrow gap, trying to get his prey, and eventually succeeds. Pierces her. The cockroach is still twitching even when it is already on its way to his mouth. When he chews it, it makes a loud crunching sound. Ifty, the system window informs that the predation effect is activated. The system notifies him of the acquisition of the hardcore vitality genetic entity. He gains the biological property of cockroaches, strong vitality. The system asks if he wants to apply the strong vitality trait, and he selects yes. Che, his limbs swell and his skin becomes noticeably stronger. Iga, he remains pleased with the result. Then he looks around. The owners of this ship humanity are his enemies. The vibrations passing through the walls and the sound of approaching footsteps tell him that he has very little time left. To avoid a grim future, he must emerge from the larval stage as quickly as possible. To do this, he will have to expand his area of the activity beyond the cargo bay. It's just the beginning. It was time to get out of the cargo bay where he first appeared. He thinks about where to go next, makes a decision, and heads towards the chosen goal. He stops at the cooling chamber next to the reactor. It's a sensitive facility, so it's rarely visited, meaning no one will notice what's happening right under their noses. ID. The monster has another option, to destroy the cooling system and escape in the resulting chaos. He peers into the ventilation duct and is about to dive inside when he suddenly hears a sound. The fan starts to spin and it becomes extremely difficult to move against the airflow. Then he starts to unscrew the bolt to remove the fan protective cover. He finally manages to remove the cover, but the fan blades are still spinning. The monster realizes that if the ventilation is damaged, the artificial intelligence will immediately alert the humans. So he decides to slip between the blades at the right moment. Eve relies on the abilities of the Amorphous. Is Supersense tells him that there are iron oxide particles and fine metallic dust in the air. In addition, the connections of the rotating blades are badly worn, and he concludes that at some point their movement will slow down slightly. Having analyzed all the information, his mind suggests the exact moment to jump. He spots an opportunity and instantly rushes forward. However, his tail still touches the fan blade. Despite this, he moves forward with a jerk and breathes a sigh of relief, realizing that he is still alive. Continuing to crawl through the ventilation, he spots a spider and eats it. Soon he reaches the exit of the duct and overhears a conversation, someone asking about the results of the experiment on subject D026. Another person replies that it's another failure. The first one angrily complains that the boss will yell at him again. They tell him that nothing can be done since the test subject came from Earth and the captain favors her. The monster is surprised. It turns out this isn't an ordinary ship at all, but a real laboratory. Judging by the people's appearance, he realizes they belong to the Megacobe Corporation. Megacobe is a large human community that has spread throughout the solar system. Simply put, it's a civilization descended from Earth. Instead of government, it's ruled by giant corporations, and most inhabitants adhere to extreme materialistic views. In the game, many human factions are neutral, but Megacobe is more of an outright villainous force. They're the only race that turns ordinary people into slaves. Even in the game, they're considered horrific, never mind what they'd be like in real life. A monster flies out of the vent. He carefully examines the surrounding space. His next steps depend on what kind of experimental ship it is, so he uses his senses again to understand more. If this is a research center for Hulk-type mutants, soldiers designed for ground combat, he will be able to gain a powerful body and combat abilities. And if they are conducting experiments here on the superpowers of a race similar to space elves, then he will be able to acquire strong psychic powers. Personally, he would like it to be an experiment with a cult, but he doubts he will be able to gain psychic abilities at this early stage. At that moment, he hears someone's weak cry for help. Getting closer and peeking out from his hiding place, he notices a round, pink creature inside the capsule, groaning pitifully in pain. This creature is called a bubble amoeba. Its peculiarity is the economy of oxygen, but for an amorphous material, this characteristic is practically useless. Then the amorphous one decides to use his supersense to find some clues. He notices electrical circuits and assumes that it is related to the experiment that the researchers talked about earlier. Thanks to his supersense, the amorphous creature discovers that the experiment can be stopped by pressing the yellow button. He carefully activates the mechanism, following the information received. The machine immediately shuts down, and the bubble amoeba thanks its savior. The amorphous creature only mentally wishes the creature a good life. At this moment, he realizes that a person is entering the laboratory. He quickly flies up and lands on a cabinet under the ceiling. The laboratory door opens. A woman enters the room and asks the man behind her when she can see the progress of Experiment 26. The man asks for a little more time. The woman looks at him coldly and states that she needs the results to report to the company before management arrives. She warns that if there is no progress, the company may reconsider his future work. The man begins to beg her. The senior researcher, Mr. Wei, trembles and sweats when she addresses him by name. The woman says she has high hopes for him. She explains that if he can extract a desired ability from experiment subject 26, it will only be a matter of time before he's promoted to chief researcher. Mr. Wei asks incredulously if this is true. She confirms this and adds that if everything goes well, their project could reach the level of Mars. In the end, she clarifies that the Martian side shows great interest in their research. Mr. Wei asks the woman how she feels about the idea of Cayenne using sonium. It's a stimulant drug developed by Star Union, and they haven't used it before. The woman replies that they have already tested all substances with a similar composition, everything except sonium itself. Ultimately, she agrees to the proposal and orders the drug administered immediately. Mr. Wei hesitates, as if the body doesn't absorb the neutralizing agent, it could cause serious problems with sustaining life. However, the woman demands immediate results. Mr. Wei tries to object, but she abruptly interrupts him, reminding him how serious the situation is. The man has no choice but to get to work immediately. He starts with a dose of 0.01 milligrams, then gradually increases it to 0.03, and then to 0.05 milligrams. The bubble amoeba begins to react. As Mr. Wei is about to administer 0.7 milligrams, the woman suddenly orders him to stop. She requires increasing the dose to the maximum level. Mr. Wei hesitates, but the woman presses the button herself. All the liquid instantly rushes into the capsule containing the bubble amoeba. The creature begins to scream in unbearable pain. It asks for help again and again, but the woman only watches what is happening with obvious pleasure. A morph can only watch all this from a safe shelter. After a while, everything gradually calms down. The woman finds the experiment's results intriguing and orders further testing on subject 26. Mr. Wei cautiously asks if it would be too dangerous. She answers in the affirmative and tells me to report any significant changes to her immediately. As she is about to leave, something strange catches her attention. She turns to the closet, but there is nothing there. Not finding anything suspicious, the woman simply leaves the room. Amorph wondered if it was the same creature, the bubble amoeba that had approached him earlier asking for help. This thought makes him feel uneasy. Finally, he makes a decision. In the coming days, he will kill that woman. While examining the device, he notices many pipes connected to the machine, and they all converge to one hole in the center. Amorph continues to chew something. Awesome H then spits out a thick green liquid. His preparations are complete. Ikei activates his super sense, and the entire ship begins to feel almost like his own body. By spraying green liquid across the surrounding area, he creates a surveillance network. Using his super senses, he can gather data on the location of his enemies, what they're doing, and what they're talking about. After 4 days of existence in amorphous form, his nest is finally complete. Station having completed the nest, it begins regularly moving between it and the cargo hold, feeding on cockroaches and spiders. Meanwhile, it observes its target and gathers information. He notices that the woman leaves at about the same time every day. This woman's name is Kisaragi Yujin. She's the ship's chief researcher. The ship itself may not be particularly powerful, but she's the most important figure on board and a serious threat to the Amorph's survival. 2 days ago, one of the test subjects escaped, and panic broke out among the researchers. However, in just 2 hours, she developed a special tracking device and managed to capture the escaped experimental sample. If that sample had been hidden in the ventilation, she might have discovered the amorphous one. That's why it needs to be eliminated as quickly as possible. The amorphous one cautiously peeks out from the ventilation duct. Istakei Zaragi suddenly turns towards him. I wonders there's nothing in the vent, but she has a strange feeling that she's being watched again. One of the soldiers asks if everything is okay. She replies that everything is fine, and they continue on their way, while the amorphous one nearly dies of fear. It was too close to being exposed. Amorph notes to himself that Kisaragi has incredibly keen senses for an ordinary person, almost as if she has some kind of psychic ability. Psionics is a special characteristic inherent to the cult's race. It includes abilities such as telekinesis, telepathy, and mind control, essentially true superpowers. However, sometimes, although extremely rarely, people are also born who have the potential for such psychic abilities. Double Amorph ponders, Kisaragi is smart, attentive, has excellent reflexes, and is almost always surrounded by armed guards. He tries to figure out the best way to approach her, as suddenly, a system window appears in front of him, informing him of a new skill, paralyzing poison. Is Aspio. This is an ideal ability for the amorphous considering its still weak body. The venom is found in its tail, and even a single drop is enough to immobilize an adult human. The effect lasts only 5 minutes, but for him, that's more than enough. The only problem is that he can only use the poison when Kisaragi is alone. Unfortunately, she's almost always near the soldiers. Amorph understands that thinking alone will not solve the situation. He decides to go outside and get some fresh air. Descending through the ventilation duct, he cautiously peers out from his hiding place. Devouring Amoeba greets him. Amorph replies that she seems to be feeling much better. He brings her some food, puts it in a box, and then the food flows through tubes directly to the amoeba. The creature rejoices and says the food is delicious. In the game, the bubble amoeba has almost no other abilities. However, the Amorph is not sure whether this rule applies to the specific amoeba in front of him, or whether this individual belongs to a different species. At this moment, the amorphous creature remembers that the woman has a cat. Thinking about it, he realizes that Kisaragi is deeply attached to her pet. It occurs to him that the cat's death might be her weak point. Unlike Kisaragi, the cat is unguarded. It usually remains alone in the bedroom until its owner calls it. Amorph decides to use the animal as bait to lure its owner out. Meanwhile, the cat lazily wags its tail and stretches. Amorph watches the cat through the ventilation grill and notices that it's a rather spoiled animal. The cat's name is Kizar. He watches her lazily roll around on the bed. The cat has become so fat due to an abundance of good food, which only confirms that Kisaragi is far from an ordinary person. At first glance, it would be easy to kill the cat, but the amorphous one understands that it is impossible to do this right now. From the outside, the vent looks ordinary, but if you peer inside with your super senses, you'll see a multitude of laser beams. One wrong move, and the artificial intelligence will immediately sound the alarm. Annoyed at having reached his limits, the amorphous creature lashes out with its tail. The cat hears this sound. Exa. She opens her eyes and rushes towards the ventilation grill. The cat starts scratching it with its paws, and the security system immediately sounds an alarm. The soldiers rush into the room. They see a cat scratching at the ventilation. However, they quickly become disappointed. This is again just the cat's tricks. One of the soldiers irritably remarks that she should have been killed long ago. Meanwhile, the amorphous creature struggles to remain unnoticed. He regrets that he attracted the cat's attention by moving his tail. But suddenly, a new thought comes to his mind. He compares all the collected information, a bored cat, problem, external stimulus, and the guard's reaction. A Wellesley grin appears on his face. Now he understands how to proceed further. Meanwhile, the cat rolls around on the bed again. And suddenly he opens his eyes, hearing a quiet rustle. A rustling sound came from the ventilation. The cat came closer and noticed a cockroach there. Her eyes lit up with a hunting gleam, and she immediately placed her paws on the ventilation grill. To her surprise, the ventilation cover suddenly gave way and opened slightly. The cat immediately crawled into the canal, triggering another alarm. However, the soldiers decided not to investigate. They were certain the cat had triggered the alarm again. Besides, they thought that she had nowhere to run anyway, since they were guarding the door of the room. Meanwhile, the cat continued to chase the cockroach, until she reached the end of the ventilation duct. Seeing the exit, she pricked up her ears. She was about to jump down from the ventilation. All her attention was focused on the cockroach ahead, and it was at that moment that the amorphous creature suddenly rushed at her from behind, and plunges his tail into her back. The cat is experiencing severe pain. She begins to squirm violently. Her breathing becomes labored, as if she is suffocating, and soon the amorphous thing devours her. There is a loud crunching sound of bones. He chews his prey with pleasure, because the meat turns out to be quite tasty. Meanwhile, Kisaragi quickly heads towards the room, much to the surprise of the researchers there. She immediately approaches the man sitting at the table. She turns to the captain, getting his attention, and she asks when she can see the Kaiser. The captain asks her to wait a little, but Kisaragi is already starting to get angry. 2 whole hours have passed. She knows that Kaiser is very picky about his feeding schedule, and if he hasn't returned yet, then something must be wrong with him. The captain reminds her that they are on a spaceship. He believes that unless the cat somehow escaped the vessel, she must still be somewhere on board. However, Kisaragi demands that Kaiser be brought to her immediately. The captain calmly replies that good news will come if he just waits a little. Deep down, he wonders why this cat is so important to her. Gritting his teeth, he suppresses his irritation. If Kisaragi weren't an influential person from the capital, he would have locked her up long ago. Kisaragi asks where the guards were. The captain replies that they are currently locked in. To his surprise, Kisaragi demands that they be executed. She reminds him that as the ship's captain, he has the right to give such orders. The captain explains that executing people for such a trivial matter will undermine the morale of the rest of the soldiers. Kisaragi becomes irritated when he realizes that the captain is taking the situation too calmly. Then the captain rephrases his words and says that such a decision can only be made after a thorough search of the entire ship. The soldiers around him are also starting to get noticeably irritated. Kisaragi reminds the captain that everything happened precisely because the guards weren't doing their job properly. The captain just lowers his head and admits that he understands this perfectly well. He promises to discipline the soldiers again. Kisaragi is clearly displeased, but tries to contain her emotions. She turns around and tells the captain that she will be back in 2 hours, and if by that time the cat is not found, the captain himself had better resign. After these words, she furiously leaves the room. Left alone, the captain slams his fist on the table, letting out his pent-up anger. He's trying to figure out where the damned cat could have disappeared to. Meanwhile, the amorphous figure watches from the vent above the room. In his thoughts, the answer is obvious. The cat is nowhere else. It is already in his stomach. Thanks to this, he received a new characteristic called Wild Instinct, although he does not yet understand what exactly it does. The game features a stat convergence system, a mechanism that combines related abilities into a single, more powerful one. The player has used this system so often that he knows almost all possible combinations by heart. However, while eating the cat, he suddenly saw a system notification that left him speechless. Even for a gamer as fanatical as he, this feature was completely unfamiliar. A message appeared in the system window about the use of the Wild Instinct characteristic, which began to merge with the existing SuperSense property. Wild Instinct and SuperSense have combined and evolved into a new ability, Predatory Perception. Now the amorphous being is able to sense approaching threats in advance. The system activated because it sensed danger, but in reality, the SuperSenses only intensified. The effect related to thinking or analysis he had hoped for did not appear. It's most likely a passive ability that triggers automatically. Until a real threat arises, it simply doesn't fully manifest. After that, the amorphous creature focused on Kisaragi again. He was sure she was no longer entirely sane. Kisaragi slams his palm down on the table. She is irritated by the fact that the situation has not yet stabilized. Observing her, the amorphous figure realizes his calculations were correct. Kisaragi only behaves like an ordinary person when it comes to what's truly dear to her. People like her lose control when they're deprived of something of theirs. Amorph is satisfied. He has achieved his second goal. He managed to sow discord between Kisaragi and her soldiers. After the cat's disappearance, a serious rift developed between them. The soldiers hadn't liked this cat before. She received the best food the soldiers themselves could only dream of. Any ordinary person would be outraged by this. They are irritated by the social difference. Kisaragi belongs to the highest aristocracy of Megakobe. The soldiers are forced to tolerate her whims and don't dare openly object. So the cat became a convenient object for them to direct their frustration at. Essentially, it served as a kind of shield for its owner. Amorph wonders what will happen now that the cat is gone and the soldiers have had to expend their energy searching for what they already hated. He doubts they can continue to sacrifice themselves to protect her. Moreover, Kisaragi herself can no longer fully trust the security. The disappearance of her beloved cat was the result of their carelessness. A sinister grin appears on the amorphous creature's face, a kind of gratitude to that very cat. The moment comes when he is about to obtain Kisaragi's genetic properties. Meanwhile, Kisaragi looks worse and worse. Her rage continues to mount. She walks quickly through the lab and irritably presses several buttons on the control panel. As a result, one of the test subjects in the capsule receives a powerful electric shock. Almost all of the sample capsules begin to experience electrical impulses, and Kisaragi angrily declares that everyone around him is useless. Suddenly, something else catches her attention. She heads straight for the bubble amoeba capsule. In a cold voice, she tells the creature that it too is one of the useless creatures. At that moment, a new thought comes to her mind and a sinister smile appears on her face. She presses a button, after which all the liquid begins to rapidly flow into the capsule through the tubes. The bubble amoeba screams in pain again and desperately asks for help. After some time, Kisaragi presses the green button. She turns away and walks away, leaving the amoeba to continue receiving the flow of liquid. The amorphous being watching this becomes enraged. He is surprised when the bubble amoeba suddenly says that it is glad to see him. The creature even waves weakly at him. Amorph watches her silently, then hurriedly returns to the ventilation duct. He understands that talking is pointless now. He's going to give the amoeba something more meaningful than words. This will be revenge. Meanwhile, Kisaragi informs the captain that the allotted 2 hours have already passed and demands a report on the results. The captain replies that the search has only just begun. He asks her to wait a little longer, but her anger only grows, and she sharply calls the captain by his name, Yusong Samuel. She asks him if he dared to go against the will of a representative of the highest aristocracy. The captain reminds her that he is the ship's commander and advises her to watch her words. In response, she yells and threatens to strip him of his captaincy. He coldly replies that he will not tolerate pressure even from an aristocrat and, if necessary, has the right to take her into custody. She only snorts derisively at the thought. The captain explains that, according to regulations, he has the right to detain anyone who disturbs the peace on the ship. The woman, enraged, begins shouting at him again. The observing amorphous being even enjoys what is happening. It becomes clear that the conflict between the captain and Kisaragi existed long before his intervention. Finally, Kisaragi turns around and leaves. Still seething with anger, she heads for the toilet, but stops for a moment at the door. She tells the guards that she's going to use the bathroom. She goes inside, and one of the guards quietly tells his partner that he needs to step aside too. Amorph understands that this is his chance. Normally, one of the guards would have to accompany Kisaragi even to the restroom, but it seemed they were already tired of her hysterics, and one of them really urgently needed to leave. In other words, Kisaragi is left completely alone in the toilet. Moreover, there are no safety systems there to prevent the amorphous creature from moving. These are ideal conditions for an ambush. Amorph peers out cautiously through the ventilation grill. Kisaragi stands in front of the mirror. He decides he can't miss this chance. The ventilation cover has already been removed, and Kisaragi is washing himself at this moment. The amorphous form quietly slides down the wall behind her. He gets nervous and even flinches for a moment. Then he slowly moves along the ceiling, while Kisaragi wipes his face, which is still dripping with water. Ishi sighs heavily, and at this time the amorphous thing moves rapidly. Kisaragi instantly flinches. Looking back, she notices a creature aiming straight for her neck. New axe, she turns sharply, causing the tail lash to miss. Essay. When the amorphous reaches the wall, he rushes at her again. This time his tail pierces Kisaragi's neck. An unbearable pain pierces her. As she feels her veins swell and foam starts coming out of her mouth. The woman falls to her knees and then collapses to the floor. Boars of Atam's axable axes trembles as the drops fall to the floor. She trembles as the drops fall to the floor, but she can't move. Meanwhile, Amorph is greedily drooling. Howie wonders what Kisaragi is thinking now. Perhaps it's horror at the sight of the alien creature before her, perhaps it's rage at what's happening, or perhaps it's fear of death. However, it doesn't matter anymore because her end is near. The amorphous thing begins to devour her, starting from the head. There's a loud crunch. Warm human blood fills his body, and the moment the genetic information contained in it reaches his brain, he feels a change. Any one of the fragments that could unlock his true potential is finally falling into place. A system window appears. The evolutionary conditions have been met. The transition from the larval stage to the juvenile stage. The system asks if he wants to continue. This is exactly the moment he's been waiting for. He chooses yes. But suddenly a vision appears before his eyes. A guard bursts inside and shoots him, and he dies. Amorph is horrified and feels a chill run through his body. His antennae begin to tingle. He wonders if this is a manifestation of a new predatory perception. According to this feeling, a security guard should enter here very soon. He considers whether to flee, but realizes there's no time left. Amorph moves quickly and decides to deal with the threat right here. The door opens and a security guard walks in. He immediately notices something lying on the floor. What he sees makes him suck in a breath. Kisaragi's body lies before him. To death. While he is trying to understand what happened, the amorphous creature flies up to him from behind. The soldier feels movement behind him but doesn't have time to react. The amorphous creature is already pointing its tail toward his head. Injurvercratimers Ashtis and Prestis, the blow follows instantly and the tail pierces the skull. The soldier falls to the floor. The amorphous creature immediately takes off. It understands that the dead man's comrade could arrive at any second. Furthermore, the humans might have some kind of tracking device it doesn't even know about, so it deliberately circles around before returning to its nest. Kanholoja's off it. He quickly reaches the nest and activates his super sense. Having checked all the parameters, he decides to start evolution. The process begins, and the amorphous creature twitches involuntarily. A thick liquid begins to ooze from its claws. Gradually, his whole body seems to dissolve. This mass even covers the head, and a new, larger shell forms on top of it. His body becomes noticeably more massive. The process itself seems strangely intriguing to him. He even wonders if it resembles the embryonic state. He clearly feels himself transforming into a completely different being. The slime gradually reassembles him, forming something alien to his previous form. He would like to see it with his own eyes, but it is impossible. Osthing Shak, this is because the moment he turned into a cocoon, he completely lost control of his body. Now everything he could do had already been done. All that remained was to wait. He spent a long time in complete darkness. Finally, the space was illuminated again. Green liquid began to flow through the tubes. It dripped onto the cocoon and soon its shell cracked. The creature slowly began to emerge. He rose up, using his new limbs as support, and soon climbed down from the split cocoon. Its body emitted a faint vapor. The claws had disappeared, giving way to four-fingered hands. Its teeth had become sharper, its body had turned black, and it could now stand on two legs. The amorphous creature let out a triumphant roar. Another evolution complete. Meanwhile, the captain asks if it was possible to establish the cause of death. Mr. Wei replies that the lead researcher died from a blow to the neck. As he said, the wound resembled a small cutting tool similar to a saw, but a more thorough examination would be needed to make a definitive conclusion. The captain clarifies whether this means an autopsy is necessary. Mr. Wei asks if the captain really wants this. The captain curses sharply, causing Wei to flinch. Then the captain sighs heavily, covers his face with his hands, and admits that he himself no longer knows what to do. Nanahei turns to the head of security and asks about the progress of the search. He replied that all the cameras on the ship had been checked, but nothing suspicious had been found. The prime suspect, one of the security guards, was currently being interrogated. The captain asks if he considers this soldier to be the real culprit. The security chief replies that, based on the available information, this is unlikely. The captain orders that he be informed immediately as soon as new results are available. After this, the captain glances at the empty chair. In Chapter C, Halthis, he tells those present that everyone has probably already heard about the recent incident in the laboratory. One of the most promising employees disobeyed the orders of the chief researcher, and as punishment, his brain was removed and is now kept in a glass tank. If this is what they do to those who simply disobey orders, the captain doesn't even want to imagine what awaits the people involved in the death of the aristocrat. This thought makes everyone present shudder involuntarily. The captain emphasizes that they need to find answers as soon as possible if they do not want to share the fate of that unfortunate man. H14 AD. One of those present suggests simply covering up the incident by claiming that an accident occurred during the experiment. An older man cuts him off abruptly. He's the senior member of the crew. He claims there are too many explorers on the ship for such a theory to be credible. In response, the crew leader sarcastically remarks that it's precisely because of this character that the old man remains nothing more than a middle-class citizen. Another elderly man suggests that Kisaragi may have been poisoned. One of the specialists immediately objects, declaring that if they do, the blame will fall on them. The old man is furious that the technical director rejected his proposal. The argument quickly escalates into a fight. One of the men loudly orders everyone to be quiet. This middle-aged man declares that internal conflicts will only make the situation worse. Everyone gradually calms down. Then he informs the captain that the ship is currently near planet CO8. The captain asks what this means. The man explains that Sector CO8 is the territory of the space dogs. The captain asks if he means to imply that the chief explorer's death can be attributed to these creatures. The man answers affirmatively and suggests a theory: their ship was attacked and they simply couldn't save her. The captain pauses. Space dogs are nomadic marauders who plunder everything in their path. They are considered one of Megacobe's main enemies. These pirates are highly skilled in space combat tactics, and even warships with experienced crews often suffer serious damage in battles with them. The captain understands that their research vessel cannot withstand such opponents. In such a battle, the ship would suffer serious damage, and in the chaos of combat, accidents could easily occur. If they report that they were attacked by space dogs, it will help hide the true cause of the lead researcher's death. The plan sounds reasonable, but the captain reminds them that their ship's weapons are significantly inferior to the space dogs' forces. The man replies that he knows some people from the past and can contact them. Hearing this, the crowd noticeably darkens. The captain's headache only worsened. This man didn't look like someone who would have connections among the pirates. The captain asked how much it would cost. Estimates all of the A. The man replies that it's at least 1 million credits. The captain clenches his teeth. The man explains that it will be difficult for the space dogs to reach Kisaragi, so this price is entirely justified due to the risk. The captain replies that he will prepare the necessary supplies, but insists that everything goes perfectly. He then stands up and announces that he is delegating authority to the crisis team manager and adjourns the meeting. Mr. Wei then asks what to do with the body. The captain replies that the body must be preserved and later handed over to the space dogs. He orders no one to touch it. Meanwhile, a light vapor rises from the amorphous body. He clearly senses that this juvenile stage is different from the previous one. Now, after evolution, he will have to change his plans. Until now, his strategy had been to avoid the attention of his enemies, but now hunting and survival become equally important. He's already more or less ensured his survival, so it's time to think about the next step. He ponders what goal he should achieve next. The system window reports that the first evolution was successful. He has now officially reached the juvenile stage. The evolution of the amorph is divided into 6 stages and goes through 5 stages of development: larva, then juvenile organism, then adolescent stage, then pre-adult, adult, and finally, the final stage, ascension. Once he reaches the ascension stage, the final stage, he effectively ends the game. In the game, after the amorph's ascension, All the secrets of this race are revealed, their origin, true nature, and other mysteries. If the game world and reality are truly connected, then the same knowledge should appear here as well. The problem is that reaching the finale is incredibly difficult. Only about 20 players have ever seen the finale of any race, and this player is the only one to have reached the amorphous ending. Amorph looks closely at the system window. It states that, starting from the stage of a young organism, certain types of development can be unlocked. He studies his stats and assumes his primary type will be related to physical strength. The system asks if he wants to see possible specializations. He chooses yes. As he expected, the physical power boost is almost there. This was made possible by the reinforced exoskeleton and acidic blood he acquired after evolution. Development types resemble those of other races, but have their own characteristics. If the conditions are met, the type is unlocked, and the corresponding abilities are enhanced. The system shows 2 available specialization paths: enhancing physical strength, 6 out of 10 conditions, and enhancing superpowers, 0.5 out of 3. He wonders what half the condition means. It probably has to do with a predatory sense of danger. However, he does not have a full-fledged ability of this kind, because he has already eaten all the insects that were in the cat. And then he remembers something important. The only body he didn't completely consume was Kisaragi's. He surmises that her mental gifts meant she must have had good instincts. Amorph decides to find her body because he wants to gain psychic powers. He quickly sets out. He opens the ventilation duct cover. But now the passage turns out to be too narrow for him. After evolution, he has become much larger. He smells a scent. It's the scent of a dead body. Following it, he moves toward the source. He climbs over the vent cover, and soon he finds what he's looking for. What he sees immediately makes him salivate. He discovers the morgue. The place where bodies are stored is located directly underneath it. There is a man with headphones sitting in the room. He listens to music and at the same time is busy working on the big screen in front of him. Suddenly, he too smells a strange odor and heads towards its source. What he sees surprises him. A large hole has formed in the floor, as if the surface had been eaten away by acid. But the man doesn't know that an amorphous figure is hiding right above him. He wonders where this acidic liquid could have come from. He is about to call security, but when he turns around, the amorphous's mouth is right in front of him. The creature's tail instantly pierces the side of his head. The man dies immediately and falls to the floor. After this, one of the bodies is removed from the freezer. Amorph grabs the blanket and pulls it down. Kisaragi's body appears underneath. He notices that she looks exactly the same as she did at the moment of her death. The bodies of members of the high aristocracy are generally considered inviolable. Amorphous finds it strange that no matter how many people he has to kill, he doesn't feel a drop of guilt. There's a saying that a creature changes under the influence of its environment. He begins to wonder if he himself has changed since becoming amorphous. Or was this always his true nature? He soon realizes that thinking about it won't change anything anyway, so he just focuses on eating. To survive, he must continue killing. That's the life of an amorphous being, and he'll have to get used to it. When people die, their bodies return to nature and become part of it. He wonders if he himself can be considered part of this nature, since he absorbs these bodies. At some point, his teeth hit something hard. He spits it out and sees a small spherical object. This item was in Kisaragi's heart, but he has no idea what it is. He squeezes it in his hand and crushes it. To his surprise, a system window appears in front of him. As he suspected, Kisaragi did indeed have psychic abilities. The system informed him that he had successfully obtained the genetic essence of the superpower organ and asked if he wished to use it. He notes with displeasure that this is precisely the organ of superpowers. Amorph is already capable of using psychic powers without such an organ, so this characteristic seems almost useless to him. However, he decides to look at it from the other side. A certain number of characteristics are required to unlock a new type anyway, so he clicks yes. At the same moment, his body begins to make cracking sounds. Several tentacles form on his head, which he finds quite curious. He suggests that over time this ability could prove useful, like the predatory sense of danger, and perhaps merge with other characteristics. Having finished with Kisaragi's body, he wonders whether to move on to the next body, the guard's. He starts eating it, but notices that the taste is rather strange and the flesh is tough and difficult to chew. Suddenly, his antennae twitch. He understands that there is danger nearby, a changing of the guard. Thanks to his super senses, he sees one guard handing over his power suit to the next guard on duty. This makes him wonder, aren't there enough of these suits on the ship? He realizes that the guard he just killed will soon be replaced. As soon as the new guard arrives, he'll immediately notice changes in the room. And in the age of space technology, people will immediately decide that there is a monster on the ship. Amorph admits he's not yet strong enough to take on the entire crew. He needs to figure out a way to buy himself time until he gets stronger. And suddenly an idea comes to his mind. The acidic solution continues to smoke, and the amorphous being remembers that he is in a morgue. Preservatives and chemicals for body disposal are stored here. He comes up with an interesting idea, a way to simultaneously resolve the crisis and get on the crew's nerves. Megacobe has no official capital, but there is a place considered the center of their civilization, Earth, the headquarters and base of operations for the entire corporation. The 5 companies that form Megacobe are known as the Earth Kings. They are now called the 5 families, and one of them, the Kisaragi family, settled in the region once known as East Asia. The Yujin family started as a business in a small country called the Republic of Korea. Now, the entire country has become their family's living space. There are small transport lines, maglev trains, and even an artificial sun to support the internal ecosystem. And, of course, the Eugene family lives there, along with tens of millions of people who serve them. In the middle of vast fields, there stands one house. A man works on the land, calmly plowing the soil. And its horses, while he is doing this, 2 men are waiting for him nearby. Finally he straightens up. And with a slight smile, he apologizes for keeping his guard and butler waiting. The butler nods to the guard, allowing him to speak. The old man asks what's wrong. The guard replies that the news concerns his granddaughter. The old man clarifies which granddaughter he's talking about. Jess. The guard explains that he is talking about Kisaragi, the daughter of his 3rd child. The old man happily asks what news there is about her. The guard replies that Kisaragi's alarm device was destroyed. Indeed, the old man refuses to believe it because he never entrusted her with any hard or dangerous work. The guard explained that the last signal had come from planet C08, considered the territory of the space dogs. The old man calmly touched the man's shoulder, and then suddenly hit him on the head with a farm tool. Blood instantly stained the field. The wounded man collapsed to the ground and began to tremble. The old man slowly approached him. After that, he struck the guard again and again, drenching the ground with more blood. When he finished, he threw the bloody instrument aside. He then ordered the remaining guards to clean up the mess. He reminded them that he didn't need tools that answered questions he didn't ask. The most important thing for them was to be useful tools. The head guard bowed and said he understood. Kisaragi's grandfather coldly remarked that raising this girl had cost him 10 billion. It was almost like building a new spaceship. He even subjected her to gene-enhancing surgery, so he doesn't believe that some common pirate could have harmed her. He was more interested in who had the courage to lay a hand on the Eugene family's treasure. He asked the butler if the captain's name was really Yusung Samuel. He knew the Samuel family originated from Titan, and the Acerton family had shown interest in them. However, it is unlikely that this is the work of the Acerton family. The head of this family is too cowardly to dare to challenge the House of Eugene. The old man asked the butler for his opinion. He cautiously suggested that TNC might be behind it. This was precisely the conclusion that Kisaragi's grandfather himself was leaning towards. Although TNC and the Acerton family appear to be rivals in the fight for rights to Jupiter, they actually act as allies. The Acerton family's loans actually come from TNC. Kisaragi's grandfather guessed that this cunning bastard was probably plotting a sudden move against the board of directors. The butler replied that TNC's head, Chamberlain, was seeking their CEO position. Kisaragi's grandfather agreed, noting that this upstart was so intimidated by him that he had decided to act stealthily. He laughed loudly, but after a moment his face became cold and serious again. The old man decided to strike first, now that they had a pretext. He ordered his butler to inform all family members, then contact their shadow agent near CO8 and instruct him to handle the situation. The butler bowed and confirmed that he would carry out the order, although deep down he knew that this would lead to a real bloodbath. Kisaragi's grandfather ordered Yusung Samuel and everyone connected to this man to be brought to him. He demanded that every single one of them be brought before him. A grim expression appeared on his face as he coldly said that anyone who destroyed his property deserved to die. Meanwhile, the door on the spaceship swung open and smoke began pouring out of the room. Yusung Samuel trembled with rage. He screamed, demanding to know what had happened here. The bodies were charred by chemicals. Earlier, the guards reported to the captain that there was smoke coming from inside, and when they went in to check, a fire was already raging inside. They explained that they wanted to get to the bottom of what was happening, but according to regulations, only doctors